of those wines, and we have a great time doing it. We talk about the wines, we talk about the food, talk about the restaurant, and of course that's about it.
All on CRN. Don't miss it.
Welcome to Divine Love Talk with Dr. Parthenia Grant, where we talk about health, well-being, and the love of the divine that exists in all of us. Now, here's your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant.
All right. I'm so excited to be back here today to share with the audience some questions that were carefully crafted by some of our listeners who are researching and pondering and thinking about the possibility that we might all be plugged into a matrix or be part of a simulation program. Science has discovered that nature has exact codes that are duplicated in what are called fractals, and they're duplicated over and over. So Kim Michaels, who is our resident expert on spirituality, he and I will be discussing my favorite movie, The Matrix, which was based on Plato's allegory of the cave. And what the real possibilities are of this being, actual possibility from a spiritual standpoint. So, welcome, Kim Michaels. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, here we go. I can hear you now. Okay. So, Kim, thank you so much for being willing to answer these questions. They're pretty deep and very complex, and I think that they're relevant in the fact that people are thinking about them and asking the questions. I think they deserve our consideration. So, sure. I'll let you, start off the discussion.
Well, I think the first thing we need to make clear here is that this is a very, very potentially very confusing topic.
I know.
And in my opinion, the first thing we need to realize is that there are some people that are in a state of consciousness where they want clear-cut yes and no answers about everything.
Gotcha.
And so if you ask the question, are we in a simulation, give me a yes or no answer, I would have to say I can't give you a yes or no answer to that question.
Right.
Because it's more complex than that.
Okay. Fair enough.
So the next thing is that the intellect cannot resolve this question. Because I have read some of the arguments.
Okay.
And I can't even deal with them myself. I mean, my brain starts frying when I read the way people think about this. And I can quickly see that it's simply the intellect that is arguing circles around itself.
Okay.
And that's what the intellect can do. It can come up with an argument, but it can also come up with a counter-argument. And you can never really get out of that.
Right.
So I think the only thing that can really resolve this and help you deal with this in a good way is if you have had spiritual, mystical, transcendental experiences. You've experienced a state of consciousness that you know is real, but it's not your normal state of consciousness.
Right. And I have had that, so it allows me to contemplate the possibility that there is way more than just, more than these five senses.
Yes, and I think that gives you then a foundation for going into it where you might hopefully avoid being completely confused.
Okay. All right. That was a great opening, not a disclaimer, but, just putting it out there so that we have sort of a level playing field to start from.
Yes, because you can very quickly see on different discussion forums or websites that people find this very, very confusing and how they can argue back and forth without really coming to a conclusive, conclusion, so to speak.
Right. Okay, but you do hear in almost all of the current or mystical or new age thought this whole concept of illusion versus reality, and that all of this sort of hit me, and I think I pointed this out once before. When my daughter was 3 years old, she woke up, hit the floor crying, and ran into my room and said, "Mommy, none of this is real. It's all a dream." And of course, this is a long time ago. I hadn't, read Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and The Matrix hadn't come out. And so I said, no, sweetheart, it's all real. And she was really, really upset. And she said, no, it's all a dream. None of this is real. And she was convinced, and she held on to that conviction until The Matrix came out, and she was a teenager, and she said, see, I told you. And, by the time she was 13, she was in college, and she was taking English, she was taking philosophy. And in the philosophy class, then she had to study Plato's Allegory of the Cave. And then she came home, and she said, look, this is what Plato was talking about, so this is not real. So there is, there's some logical arguments, in favor of the fact that we are being manipulated, that somebody is manipulating us into thinking that this is all there is.
Well, yes. You can go back to the Buddha 2,500 years ago, and he talked about the world is Maya, or illusion.
Yes.
And there was Plato, and there's, of course, many philosophers who have thought along the same lines. But I think, the first thing we need to, discuss is, what do we mean when we say something is real?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if you have a thought about that.
Well, okay, that's where I needed your help because, see, I think that with us being limited, if we limit everything to our five senses, then we would say, well, only what we can see, hear, taste, and touch are real. But I know that that's not true, that there's a lot more that's going on beyond the five senses. So I think if we were going to come up with a definition of what's real, the average person would say, well, if I can see it, taste it, touch it, or feel it, then it's real. And then everything that's beyond the five senses would not be real to them. So would that be a fair place to say that that's where most people begin?
Yeah, that's the place to begin, where you can, and I would agree with you that what we see with the five senses is not real in an ultimate sense.
Okay.
But I would also have to say it doesn't mean there's nothing.
Beyond that?
Yeah, and that there's nothing that there's nothing that's real.
Oh, at all.
It depends, many years ago I was in the Science Museum in Seattle. And they had a child who was wearing these virtual reality goggles. They've become a lot better, but back then it was a very primitive version.
Right.
So the kid was up on the stage wearing these goggles, and he was only seeing what was projected inside the goggles.
Right.
And we could see on a big screen what he was seeing. But, of course, we could also see him walking around on the stage.
Uh-huh.
So in that respect, I would say, yes, what he was seeing was not real. It was a dream. It was an illusion. It was a simulation.
Yes.
But we were outside.
Observing.
So compared to what he was seeing, there was a real world outside of what he was seeing.
Okay.
And so the way I would look at it from an Ascended Master perspective is that there are some that argue that we have created the entire universe, and that if we awaken from this dream, the universe will disappear.
I've heard that one. And the Toltecs. Go ahead.
That one I don't disagree. That I don't agree with, because we haven't created the world, the universe. The Ascended Masters have.
Yeah, because I agree that that's sort of a narcissistic perspective, that we're holding the whole universe together. And I've always believed that there was something bigger than us, that created this.
Yeah, and that's why you need to have this mystical experience, because then you have experienced a reality that is beyond your own mind. And that's why you don't fall into this trap of thinking that your mind has created everything.
Okay.
You realize there's a mind outside of yourself that has created a world, and you are living in it, and you are interacting with it.
Right.
So the reason why this is important is that in philosophy, for example, you have philosophers that talk about something that can get you into an infinite regress, where you can keep arguing around the same thing forever without really reaching anything ultimate.
Right.
And so if you go into the idea that our minds have created everything, where do you end up?
Well, right.
Except in a straitjacket.
Exactly.
And you can literally argue circles around your own mind.
Right.
And so we can in a way we can cut through this and say, if we really were living in a simulation, how could we even ask the question?
Well, that's true, because the simulation probably would not allow for the person who's being manipulated to question the simulation.
Right. If you are sitting on your computer playing a computer game with Lara Croft running around shooting bad guys in a dungeon,
right.
Is she going to be able to ask, oh, am I a simulation?
Okay. Well, but
she can't, right?
I agree.
Absolutely not. So if we were completely artificial creations, we couldn't ask the question. The reason we can ask the question is that we are not created in a simulation. We are created as real beings. But what we have done is we have entered into the physical body and the lower mind that is very tied to the senses, but also the logical, rational mind.
Okay.
And here's the trick. What we are seeing from inside of that body-mind is a dream, is unreal. It could be said to be a simulation.
Okay.
But I would, instead of saying it's a simulation, I would actually argue that it is something that we are partly creating ourselves.
We are influencing it because we have free will. And I've been struggling for quite some time about the whole issue of free will within, a world where everybody else has free will. And then you hear a lot of people in the New Age movement say, well, just, set your intention and then, you can create whatever it is that you want to create. And yet, there's part of that I understand, about setting your intention. But you have all these other factors of other people's free will that you can't interfere with and that you can't control. So it could drive you crazy if you think that you can just set your intention and control everything that happens in your life.
It's a totally narcissistic argument because it presumes that you are the only being in the world who can set your intention.
Exactly.
That the whole world revolves around you, and then the rest of the universe is just going to fall into place and manifest what you want to manifest.
Because
and there are people who argue like that. I know that.
I know, and
I just feel that defies just common experience. These people apparently have never had children. Because then you know that other people will not do what you want them to do all the time. But I wanted to just return back to what I said before we go too much into the free will thing, because the science of quantum physics has actually discovered what I was talking about.
Okay.
It used to be that scientists were thinking that if a scientist is outside of the phenomenon he is observing, he's just an objective, neutral observer, and he's not influencing what he's seeing.
Right.
But what quantum physicists discovered was that certainly at the level of quantum particles, but everything is made out of quantum particles, so it really applies to everything. What you are seeing is not what is actually there outside of your mind. What you are seeing is something you are co-creating when your mind is interacting with the reality that's outside the mind. They're not saying there's no reality outside the mind.
Yeah.
They're just saying you can't see it without the glasses you have on, and the glasses will affect what you're seeing.
Yes.
And that's why you could argue that everything is a dream, and we have co-created it.
Okay, so let's pick up with that after commercial break. We're going to go further down the rabbit hole on this one. Okay, thank you for joining us on Divine Love Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant, and joining me is my co-host, Kim Michaels. We're discussing illusion versus reality and whether this is a matrix or a simulated program. We'll be back with more after commercial break.
Over 2 million families have trusted Lumber Liquidators for beautiful, high-quality, and affordable flooring. Our incredible deals mean you get the floor you want at the low price you deserve, like 5-inch click pre-finished hardwood. It's as easy to install as laminate, and now it's just 99 cents. Or get solid hardwood for less than you'd pay for laminate at other stores. This week, get 3/4-inch real pre-finished maple for just $169. More deals from 49 cents. And 18-month special financing for quality hardwood floors for less. See the experts today. Visit LumberLiquidators.com to find a store near you.
Hi, here's your delivery from Staples.com.
Thanks, Staples guy. My office is starving. Got any snacks?
Staples has pretzels, granola bars, energy bars, trail mix, all at a low price.
Nuts?
Cashews, almonds, pistachios, pecans, walnuts.
Chips?
Potato chips, corn chips, whole grain chips, gluten-free chips.
Whoa, that's a lot of snacks.
We also have antacids. Tablet antacids, liquid antacids. Make on budget happen, make break time happen. Staples, make more happen. Now at Staples, get a 42-ounce bag of M&M's milk chocolate or peanut candy for just $8.99.
Offer valid on SKU 689508 and 689504 and 523 while supplies last. See store staples.com for details.
CRN travelers, relax at the beautiful Fountain Grove Inn and Conference Center in Santa Rosa, California. Come to quality and come to luxury. Experience the newly renovated guest rooms. They're generously sized and they're decorated in the Tuscan tradition. They have great, incredible pillow-top mattresses, luxurious linens, and down-filled comforters. The Fountain Grove Inn also offers complimentary Wi-Fi and internet access. There's warm cookies and coffee every evening in the hotel lobby, and you can visit the newly remodeled Equus Restaurant and Equus Lounge with its new wine bar. It's the ideal place to relax and enjoy a glass of wine and watch our What's Cooking on Wine show on CRN with host Larry Van Alst on Wednesdays. It's the Fountain Grove Inn, Hotel, and Conference Center located in the heart of Sonoma wine country. It's easily located in Santa Rosa off the 101 Fountain Grove Parkway exit. Call 707-578-6101. That's 707-578-6101 or visit fountaingroveinn.com.
You order a glass of your favorite Cabernet, fresh asparagus, hollandaise on the side, a filet, medium rare. You unfurl your napkin with a flair, close your eyes, and prepare to listen. Ah, there it is. The sweet music you long to hear. The sizzle. The sizzle of a Ruth's Chris steak.
The most magnificent corn-fed prime beef, broiled to perfection at 1800 degrees. Some call it a sizzle. We call it an anthem.
As the waiter approaches, you think, is this one mine or that one?
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Like Ruth always said, life's too short to eat anywhere else.
Make a reservation online at ruthschris.com or by calling 800-544-0808.
Okay, we're back with our discussion on whether we are plugged into a matrix that might be a simulation program and how we can possibly deal with this conundrum related to philosophy. So, Kim, would you complete your end thought before we went to commercial break?
Yeah, the basic idea was that what we see is not the real world as it is. We see it through a filter, and the filter affects what we're seeing. And so that's why you could argue it's a dream that we have partially created ourselves. You could also argue it's a simulation because what we are seeing inside our minds is not the real world as it is. There is a real world. We are just seeing a distorted version of it, just like if you are wearing colored glasses.
Okay, so can you elaborate on that in terms of us seeing a distorted version of it? Because, you know, the Toltec philosophy is that we are dreaming up our reality as we go. And, you know, free will is in alignment with the fact that, you know, we do get to believe or think whatever it is that we want to think into reality. And there is this collective consciousness of thought.
Yeah, the way I would approach that is I would say that you're going through life and you're having different experiences in life. And, of course, you're not the only person on Earth.
Right.
So you're interacting with other people. So here you have, for example, you and your parents. And there is a situation where you are sitting around the dinner table. And So this is not something you have entirely created in your own mind, because these other people are there and they also have their minds and their free will.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that each of the three people sitting at the dinner table are having their own inner experience of that situation.
For sure.
So what you are dreaming up is what is your life experience. It's what's happening inside of your mind.
Right.
And of course, the other people that you interact with, they have their own life experience. So yes, it's true. You are creating your particular life experience, and it is a creation that involves both the outer situation you are in, but first of all, how you see it, how you experience that situation.
Right.
And so what we can do to awaken ourselves from the dream or the matrix is we can look at what the Buddha called your perception filter.
Okay.
And consider, how is my mind affecting what I'm seeing, and is there a way to experience the world that isn't colored by this outer mind?
Well, that's fascinating. So I'd love the answer to that. How can we see the world without the perception filter?
Yeah,
what's the process?
The Buddha's answer was the Eightfold Path.
Okay.
Which was the path that he defined based on his philosophy and his worldview. Jesus' answer was the path to personal Christhood, which unfortunately was lost when the Roman Catholic Church turned Christianity into something different than Jesus envisioned. But you also find it today in many mystical teachings, and of course the Ascended Masters have presented a path through me and other messengers. So there's a systematic, gradual path. It isn't something you can do in an instant.
Okay.
And that's where, we might as well get that out of the way, because we are so programmed in our culture. We want instant gratification.
Yes.
And I think actually, if you go back and look at Plato's allegory of the cave, right?
Yeah.
You can see that Plato's allegory was very much affected by his time.
Yes.
But he's essentially saying some of the same things as was said, for example, in The Matrix. It's just that now in today's age, we are so programmed with technology that everybody thinks that if we are living in a dream world, it must be some computer simulation or some technological device that has created it.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that thinking is that then we also think that if we can just find the switch, we can turn off the simulation instantly.
Right.
And that
or rewrite the program.
Yes. Yeah. You can mechanically do it.
Yes.
You think there's a mechanical solution, and that's where it gets dangerous to go into these arguments, because it takes you away from the reality of the spiritual path.
Okay.
Because nothing has fundamentally changed just because we have changed our vocabulary and we are thinking more in technological terms.
Okay.
But the fact is, it's
Kim,
your state of consciousness.
Kim, hold on to that, because I want to pick that up when we come back after commercial break, because Plato was relevant. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN. I'm discussing whether we're in a simulated reality or the Matrix with my co-host, Kim Michaels. We'll be back with more after commercial break on CRN. You're listening to Divine Love Talk with Dr. Parthenia Grant.
For a raise and your boss said, I'll think about it. Don't be confrontational. Be conversational. Expert Laura Fredericks.
You can't close this ask. I mean, you cannot bring it to resolution unless you know what the person's thinking. So I always say to them, thank you for this. Is it the amount or is it the timing? And those are two very different ways to close this ask. Because if it's the amount, well, then we can go, the salary you asked for might be too high at this time. But if it's the timing, it could be you're just not in the cycle to get it, or the budgets haven't been complete. So they didn't say no to the amount. It's just you're not in the right cycle period.
Next, ask, can you share your thoughts with me about why the amount is not feasible now?
When is the date we can revisit it? I always like to put a place marker in to come back, because they didn't say no, never. It's not going to happen. I want to find out when I can go back.
Laura Frederick's book is The Ask. That's Primetime Focus, brought to you by AARP. I'm Aileen Ellis.
Have you ever considered adding a home security system but thought it would be too expensive? Here's the good news. There's never been a more affordable time to help protect your home, valuables, and your loved ones. You can now get a $100 Visa card from Protect Your Home, your authorized ADT dealer, with the installation of a new ADT monitored system. Here's even better news. Your new system, worth $850, is free. You pay just a $99 installation charge and purchase monthly monitoring for less than $2 a day. Call Protect Your Home today at 1-866-669-8954. That's 1-866-669-8954. Get the peace of mind that comes with owning an ADT monitored system, plus a $100 Visa card from Protect Your Home. Call now, 1-866-669-8954. That's 1-866-669-8954. 36-month monitoring contract required. General terms and conditions apply. Visit protectyourhome.com/terms.
Are you nearing eligibility for Medicare benefits? Then you know now is an important time in your life. Medicare benefits can be a complicated puzzle. You don't want to overpay for your Medicare coverage or get the wrong plan. Let Health Markets Insurance Agency help you. With one free phone call, a licensed insurance agent will help you select a Medicare plan that's right for you and your budget. If you're becoming eligible for Medicare, call today and learn how to get the most out of your benefits.
800-793-1960. 800-793-1960.
Health Markets Insurance Agency is the DBA or assumed name of InSphere Insurance Solutions, Inc., which is an authorized insurance agency in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Not all agents are licensed to sell all products. Service and product availability varies by state.
Call 800-793-1960. 800-793-1960. 800-793-1960. 800-793-1960.
Need a great tractor to help with your chores? Get a Kubota BX Series subcompact tractor with financing as low as 0% APR for up to 5 years during our More Power to You sales event. 0 down, 0% APR financing for terms up to 60 months on select equipment now through June 30th, 2015. Not available for rental, national accounts, governmental customers, or with some customer instant rebate offers. Financing through Kubota Credit Corporation USA, subject to credit approval. Other exceptions may apply. For more information, call toll-free 1-888-465-8268.
For more information or to find a participating dealer, visit Kubota.com.
Chuck Wilder here, host of the original Talkback. Noon to 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time, 3 to 5 out there on the East Coast. You know, we cover everything you need to know to keep up with what they don't want you to know. Talkback, CRN, Digital Talk, noon to 2 Pacific Daylight Savings Time.
Okay, we're back with Divine Love Talk, where Kim Michaels and I are discussing the possibility that we might be part of being plugged into the Matrix or a simulation program. And when we left off, Kim had mentioned Plato's allegory of the cave, which is quite relevant today in the sense that he pointed out that we were being manipulated by, that we were like puppets who were being manipulated by puppet masters and only allowed to experience and see what the puppet masters want us to see, which is a very limited and very controlled reality. And in his story, it was about, one person breaking free of this cave that he had been in his whole life and seeing, the real world, and full of color. But then once he came back into the cave and experienced this alternate reality and started sharing it with the other people in the cave, then they were so attached to that alternate reality that they literally wanted to kill him. They didn't want to hear about, something that was different than what they had already experienced. And so, I find that very, very relevant to today when you try to introduce new concepts or ideas that are outside of the mainstream or that are outside of the box. You know, for instance, if you've had some type of mystical experience or an inner revelation or knowing, and you try to wake up people that are still plugged into the matrix or that are still inside of the cave, it reminds me of Morpheus talking to Neo and telling him when they were walking along the street and he saw Neo was actually distracted by the lady in red, and he said, look, you missed that agent there and you could have gotten killed, and you got to remember that all these people are plugged into the matrix and they have a vested interest in that alternate reality, and if you try to unplug them, they will try to kill you, so they're considered very, very dangerous. So I've had that experience myself in dealing with people that just don't want to face the truth about the fact that we are being manipulated, that there is a power elite that has an agenda, that they are controlling things, and that their agenda most definitely is not in alignment with our best interest, that, you know, there are corporations that have their own agendas that have to do with using us and manipulating us basically as human resources. So if you go back to the Matrix, they were right in terms of using the metaphor of us being harvested for energy for the machines. Well, today, our energy is essentially being harvested in terms of human resources, where we're basically viewed by the power elite as a source of income, where they can profit off of us for whatever it is that their agenda is. And mostly it's not actually what we would call a favorable agenda. It would be favorable in their according to their agenda, but it most definitely would not be favorable for the rest of us. And most specifically, I'm talking about like last week we were discussing the forced vaccinations of children, and of course the bill was pushed through, and it makes absolutely no sense that, you know, a very, very small portion of the children are not vaccinated, and why on earth would the government be going through all of these machinations to force these parents to vaccinate their children? We've got Kim back. So, Kim, I've been keeping the discussion going while we were trying to reboot to get Kim back on Skype. So
I'm back now.
All right. So, Kim, let's pick up where you left off. I was still talking about the hologram, and that there is, you know, when Plato was talking about the allegory of the cave, he was, you know, pointing out that we are being manipulated. So I think it's very, very clear that we are being manipulated in this reality.
But by whom?
I call it the power elite, you know, the corporations that have an agenda. But, you know, you would probably call it the dark forces. I'm not sure.
Well, yes, but I want to make something clear before we go into that. That is that there is an overall level that is beyond any kind of manipulation.
Okay, that's good to hear.
You know, there was an original world. Let's just focus on the Earth.
Okay.
The Earth was originally created by the 7 Elohim, which are 7 ascended masters.
Okay.
And it was created in a much purer and more balanced state than it is today. Then or human beings were created, spiritual beings were created who descended and took on human bodies. And this was done, you asked at one point, what's the overall purpose of this whole thing? Mm-hmm. And it is to help us raise our consciousness. We grow, we start out as co-creators, but we have relatively limited sense of what we can do and what we can't do, what our creative abilities are.
That's true.
And so it's just like children. You don't send them out to do something dangerous. You send them into a sandbox where they can't really hurt themselves and they can't hurt the sand. And so we started out in a very balanced, very ideal world. But we were also given free will. So we could do two things. We could either go up and multiply the talents we had been given and create a more beautiful earth, or we could go into what I call the duality consciousness and then start becoming more selfish and self-centered. And that is what a majority of the people on this planet did. And that's why we have gone to a much lower level that we see today than what was originally created.
Well, and so then, of course, the duality consciousness is what has led to, you know, the master-slave dichotomy that we see on the planet, and the, you know, puppet, the masters, you know, being the and us being the puppets.
Yes, but you have to realize that even though the Earth was originally created in a pure state, it was also set up to give us any experience we want. And when you go into the duality consciousness, that's when you see yourself as a separate being. You're separated from your source, you're separated from other people. And that's when you can have this idea that some people not only are different from others, but they're better than others. Some people are the leaders, some people are the followers, some are the masters, some are the slaves. But see, we were not manipulated or forced to go into that state. We chose.
So, all right. So that I can
so
go
in other
with
words,
that.
we chose to enter a state of consciousness where we want to have two opponents. So if we choose we want to be the slave, we need to have a master who can manipulate us.
Okay.
It's something we have chosen. And the reason why I'm saying that is that the only way to get out of it is that we must choose.
All
If
right.
you go back to Plato, what did Plato write most about? He wrote about Socrates. And what did Socrates do? He went around Athens and questioned everybody's preconceived opinions and beliefs. Everything that people took for granted, Socrates would question it.
Exactly.
And that's what all spiritual people do. And that is the essence of awakening from the illusion, is you question everything you take for granted.
Okay. So it's a good thing that we are, you know, coming up with these questions, that listeners are coming up with these questions. And so you're saying that we choose this. And so now I don't like this reality, you know, that we have. I don't like, you know, the government forcing us, you know, to inject, you know, toxins and poisons into our body. And I don't like this feeling, you know, of being overwhelmed by all of it. So how do we choose, you know, to move out of duality? You know, once you have realized, oh, wow, this is really no fun. You know, this whole duality game. I don't like this game anymore.
Right. I mean, there's two aspects of that. Your individual experience and then the fact that you're on a planet with 7 billion other people who haven't reached the same level and haven't decided like you have that you've had enough of it.
So am I stuck with all the rest of the people that want to keep playing this game?
What you can do is you can focus on yourself and your own state of consciousness, your own development.
Okay, I am.
You can focus on taking command over what is your responsibility, your own mind.
Okay.
But what you also have to do in order to really take command of your own mind, you have to stop trying to take command over the mind of everybody else.
That, you know, that's a dichotomy in and of itself, in that
and it's very difficult to do because when you are in this consciousness of thinking that the government is out to get you, you can't really free yourself.
Right, but you know, the reality is I walk out and I look at the sky and they're spraying poison in the sky. So I can't say that.
But what did we just talk about your perception filter?
Okay.
Yes, there is a reality, and there are other people who are in a lower state of consciousness who are doing certain things.
Okay.
That's true. But the question is, do you want to be free by trying to change them or by trying to change yourself?
Okay, so then how do we, let's just deal with that dichotomy of, yes, I want to be free, And I'm real clear. I can't change other people, but I still don't. I'm not comfortable with the fact that other people, so many of them, are forcing their will on me. So how do we find that balance?
But how can they force their will on you when you have complete free will?
Well, if it's complete, then I wouldn't be breathing this poison air and struggling so hard to just find...
No, if your mind was completely free and you were in control of your own mind, it wouldn't bother you that you were breathing this air.
Really?
Because you would accept two things. Number one, you can live a life on this planet where you're not bothered by the current conditions. And number two, current conditions are an expression not only of your state of consciousness, but of the collective.
Right.
And you can't change the collective overnight, but what you can do is free yourself completely from the collective consciousness, and thereby you will pull everybody else up.
I get that.
You'll also get to a point where whatever these other people are doing is not ruining your life experience.
Okay, well then I'm not there yet.
Right, because you're still struggling against somebody.
Okay.
And it's not that we should be passive and not say anything.
Yeah,
it's just that
that's the fine line.
But the balance is that we can't do it. We can't solve the problem created by duality if we're still in duality. We can't do it by struggling against others. We can still do what Socrates did. Socrates didn't go in and argue with anybody.
Okay.
Jesus didn't either. The Buddha didn't either. They asked questions and gave teachings so that those who were willing and ready could question their reality.
Okay, fair enough. I got
And then
that.
they left the others to do whatever they wanted. Jesus even went to the extreme of letting them kill him because that was what they wanted. I'm not saying we should all do that because times have changed, but nevertheless, we have to let other people do what they want to do, and then we speak out. We speak our truth and our experience.
Okay.
But we don't do it in this way that, there's somebody out to get us and they have power over us. Because as long as you think the government has power over you, it has power over you.
Okay, so then give me a more concrete example. So how would you do it? You said you ask questions, okay, but, at the same time, you can't deny, the reality of what's actually happening and pretend that it isn't happening. There's certain issues that do need to be addressed. And so how do we address them beyond the duality, consciousness?
The question for you is, you want to be free.
Yes.
Where is your freedom going to take place? Inside your mind or outside your mind?
Inside, absolutely.
Okay, but so why are you worried about what's going on outside your mind? Why are you thinking that you have to accomplish something outside your mind before you can be free inside your mind?
Well, then that's probably the stuck point. Because I'm thinking, I have this physical existence, and then I also have the existence that's inside of my mind, and maybe I'm tackling it from the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
You're trapped because you're inside this perception filter bubble of duality.
Okay.
And when you step into duality, you're always projecting that there's an opponent outside of yourself that has power over you.
True.
And so you can never be free of that opponent as long as you're inside that perception filter.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is you have to get to a point by questioning what you take for granted. You have to get to a point where you realize there is an opponent, but you realize it has no power over you. It has no influence on your life experience.
Okay.
This is what the Buddha called being non-attached. And once you attain this non-attachment, then you can do what Socrates did. He went out and questioned everybody's illusion without ever getting attached to it or involved in it. He didn't fight it. He just questioned.
All right. Okay. I can feel that. Eric, are you following this logic?
I'm following. I got my running shoes on though.
It takes a little getting used to, I admit that.
I mean, but Eric, don't you think that is very challenging,
Absolutely, yeah.
to actually move into this place where, okay, we know something has to be done. And Kim, I totally get what you're saying about the fact that, we've got to be we speak out, but in a very non-attached way. And I think I've made a lot of progress in that area.
Yeah, certainly.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we are going to have to continue this discussion next week. We didn't even get halfway through it. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant, talking with my co-host, Kim Michaels, about getting through this duality consciousness and illusion versus reality. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN with Dr. Parthenia Grant. We'll be back wrapping this up after commercial break.
You're experiencing pain, back pain, shoulder, elbow, or hand pain, pain from a sports injury. If so, schedule a visit with Dr. Michael Sheps, the leading expert in laser therapy for pain management. Call 310-873-4422 or go to drsheps.com. Experience Epic T, the breakthrough laser therapy system that Dr. Sheps developed to make you pain-free in less time. Laser therapy is a non-invasive, safe, and effective in-office procedure that penetrates deep into your skin without damaging the tissue. It perfectly targets areas of pain to promote fast, natural healing. Relax your muscles, ease muscle spasms, joint stiffness, and arthritis pain while increasing blood circulation. For over 25 years, Dr. Sheps has helped Olympic athletes and sports enthusiasts alike get back in the game. Schedule your visit with Dr. Sheps at his Brentwood office in California. Call 310-873-4422 or visit drsheps.com. That's DRSHEPS.com. 310-873-4422.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control of your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problem now by calling the experts at U.S. Tax Shield and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, so call now. 800-351-8614. That's 800-351-8614. U.S. Tax Shield. 800-351-8614.
Okay, we're back. Wrapping this up with Divine Love Talk. And Kim, I want to kind of very quickly summarize what I think that you were saying to me. I get that we have to take our power back from within, and that as we deal with the issues, on the outside that are affecting everybody, that we have to deal with it from a position of, our own inner strength and our own inner power, and not feeling like a victim, which is, going into duality consciousness. So you're not saying be passive. You're saying, address the issues, but address them from a higher perspective. Am I?
Yes, the Buddha talked about the middle way, which is kind of a I don't think it's a full translation or what he originally intended. I think something has been lost in translation because for a lot of people it sounds like it's just a compromise between two extremes.
Yeah.
And there are some Buddhists that have taken that to mean that you should just sit and meditate.
Yeah, and do nothing.
But the Buddha was not passive. He just wasn't fighting. He wasn't struggling.
Yeah.
And what he said was that one of the noble truths is that life is suffering, but life is suffering because you are in the duality consciousness.
Yes.
And so what you need to do is to stop trying to solve the problems from that level of consciousness. Okay. And then once you have freed, you focus first on freeing yourself from duality. And then once you have started to do that, then you can address the problems in an entirely different way.
Okay. Got it. Well,
and you're not passive. You are actually doing the most effective thing. But it's just that the thing is, Socrates, for example, he was asking questions to awaken people. He was not trying to manipulate or force them into changing.
Right.
So there has to be that total respect for free will.
Oh, totally.
And you have to respect that, maybe there is a government that's too dictatorial. Maybe there is a power elite. But that's because there's still a majority of the people on this planet who want that experience.
Well, that is quite unfortunate. But the good news, Eric, you were pointing out, is that people are waking up. And how would you?
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that my generation, and of course my father's generation, starting in the '60s, they had a different way of approaching this problem that we're all facing now. And one thing that my grandmother always told me, she says, if you get right within, you'll be fine without.
That matches what you were saying, Kim.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I was just the other day, I was hearing a lecture where somebody talked about this old Donovan song, Universal Soldier. Mm-hmm. And the idea was that it was the soldiers that were to blame for the war.
Yeah, because if they gave a war and nobody came, then we couldn't have a war.
Yeah, and it's not a bad argument at a certain level, but on the other hand, if you go to a deeper level, you realize that you're still blaming somebody else. You're still trying to change somebody else instead of changing yourself.
Well, true.
And as long as you are trying to change somebody else, you will not be free from duality.
Okay, I got it. And I do appreciate that. And it also occurred to me that we really don't have to go along with these mandates, with these forced mandates. That the government is implementing. So that's where our real power is in saying no.
Or we can go along in the physical and transcend them in consciousness.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to have to talk more about this next week on Divine Love Talk, on how we can actually transcend them in consciousness. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Kim, for taking the time to cover this. And we will be back next week with more of Divine Love Talk on CRN. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant, talking with my co-host, Kim Michaels.